Time now for an update regarding the migration effort from Simpa Mailing List Manager to Google Groups. Ed is sticking around for this update, and he's joined by Project Manager Greg Stewart. Greg and Ed, over to you.
Thanks, Tyler. My name is Greg Stewart. I'm the project manager.
And I'm Ed Rines. I'm the subject matter expert.
And we're here to talk to you about the migration from Simpa to Google Groups.
The reason we're migrating off of Simpa is because the existing server is ancient. It's really old. It's more than 8 years old. The software is even older than that. The system itself is just not able to keep up with the load that's being put on it. So things are really slow right now. We really need to upgrade it and get off of it. There's actually a risk that the server will fail and we don't have a replacement for it. So we kind of need to move off of it sooner rather than later.
In addition to that, we are looking to have enable further integration between the Crew Google Apps suite. So everything from Gmail to Google Calendar to Google Drive. Google Groups is just kind of another piece that fits within the entire Google Apps suite. There's actually some really cool interoperability with Google Drive and Google Calendar. You can, instead of adding individuals, you can just add a group directly and manage your groups that way. So instead of having to add 10 individual people, you set up a group and add everyone through the group that way to a calendar invite or to a Drive document you're sharing. So there's a lot of cool features that exist once you kind of pull all of the Google suite together. Talking a little bit about the milestones. So first and foremost, the top milestone is to create a tool to migrate lists from Simpa to Google Groups. The piece I really want to highlight here is that this is dependent upon the list owners in Simpa to migrate their list from Simpa to Google Groups. We do have this tool out there and available, and I'll touch upon a little bit how to access that in the future. But really, it is up to the list owners to migrate their lists. The tool will probably cover about 90% of the lists, and then Ed will talk a little bit about so any list that...
Yeah, there are some lists that use features that are not covered in Google Groups, and we are in the process of developing tools to allow Google Groups to be able to handle these types of lists. It's a small number of people that use these lists, but they're power users, so they're important.
Great, thanks, Ed. The next milestone is supporting communication and training materials. So like I said, because this tool is dependent upon the Simpa list owners moving their list and not us moving it for them, really this is, having good supporting communication and training materials is really crucial to the success of the project. And the final milestone here on this slide is making the migration process as easy as possible. We understand that there's a learning curve to using Google Groups, and so we try to make the tool as easy for the end user as possible. We highlighted any gaps that exist when moving from Simpa to Groups. There's a couple terminology changes, and we made sure that we highlighted those extensively in both the migration tool, as well as we have pre- and post-migration checklists. There's a plethora of information out there on the website that we've created for this project. Talking a little more about the milestones for phase 2.
Yeah. Google Groups that are linked to databases and LDAP are two of the major uses for the power users. That's not something that's native to Google Groups, so we have to develop that. We're in the process of beginning stages of developing those tools. There's also issues with creating lists with large numbers of external users because Google limits how many and how quickly you can add them. So we're working on ways around that as well. And finally, the biggest milestone is decommissioning the Simpa server. Like I said, it's old, it's prone to having problems, and we want to get people off of it as soon as we can.
Great, thanks, Ed. Mm-hmm. So moving now to the current project status. So as I had highlighted before, we have reviewed the communication and training materials. Really our goal, like I'd said before, is to make the documentation clear and easily accessible. We launched the migration tool probably about a couple months ago. There was initial communication that was sent out in mid-March and through the daily, and we've sent recurring communications about the tool, how to access it. Along those lines, you can find all the documentation, the tool, a short training video on how to use the tool, tons of documentation on the website at case.edu/its/google/groups. I would recommend going there if you have any questions. It's really kind of the first place to go. There's tons of documentation on any features, what the analogous settings are. If you were used to doing it one way in Sympa, how do I do it in groups? All of that documentation is out there. And we will have ongoing communication to the campus throughout the summer and fall semesters, especially once we set a date to decommission the Sympa server. So we make sure that list owners have ample time to migrate their list. If you do have any concerns, if you have some time now during the summer, I would highly recommend getting out there and migrating your list from Sympa to Google Groups. Going now to the current migration status, you can see where as of today, I think we're right around 600 or so lists that have successfully migrated from Sympa to Google Groups. So that's a pretty large sample size. Like I said, these were done successfully, so I really encourage everyone to go out there and migrate your list. Touching now upon the timeline, so phase 1 is really developing and deploying the migration tool, which we are most of the way through. Kind of the last piece will be ongoing communication to the campus to make sure people are aware of what's available and how to access it. Talking a little bit about phase 2, Ed.
The customizing of the Google Groups to address the unique cases is underway, but just beginning. So we're a ways away on that one. No hurry for the people who need those. So,
Yep.
But
Yep. And then once we've made it through phase 2, as Ed said, we're just starting with that. So once we've made it through, we will then close the project after we've decommissioned the Sympa server. With that, any questions, Tyler?
Thank you, Greg and Ed, for that update. So last week we announced that users will not be able to create new lists in Sympa after June 30th. Does this affect the power users you're kind of alluding to with your description of phase 2 of the project, who may create lists that pull their subscribers from, say, a database or LDAP?
Let me take that.
no, those users will not be affected. We will exempt the power users who need the special features of Sympa, so they can continue to use Sympa until we've come up with tools that can cover them.
But that was a great point, Tyler. Like Tyler had said, that there's you can no longer create new groups in new mailing lists in Sympa after June 30th. So we really recommend you get in there and start to migrate your lists to Google Groups if you haven't done so already.